such a shock whenever I say that. Someone needs to punch this guy in the face. I mean business. I donated it to charity. 2026 is just the year of ice hockey. Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. In today's video I'm going to be going through every single book that I read in the months of April and May. It is currently May 25th, so I think I'm going to finish one more book before the end of the month, but I will quickly talk about it a little bit and then I'll tell you my review in my next wrap up. Okay, so my stats for my reading. April, I read 7 books, 2,969 pages, and I gave an average rating of 3.79. 7 books is very good as well for a month, can I just say? And then in May, bearing in mind I'll probably finish one more book before the end of May, so it says 4 books but it'll probably be 5, and 1,690 pages, but it will be like 2,000 something pages. And my average rating is a 4.13, which is very good. I've had some good reading in May. Pretty sure there was one book that I missed off my previous wrap up because again I had to film it a couple of days early and I managed to read it before the month ended, so this is technically read in March. That was The List of Suspicious Things by Jenny Godfrey. I did have it physically. I gave it back to my mum and I don't know where she's put it. I was going to try and get it so I could have it for this video, but put a picture up on the screen. So this one is like a cozy mystery sort of vibe. It's a bit different to the normal books I kind of go for, but my mum recommended it to me and I actually did really enjoy it. Our main character, who is, I think she's like 12, and she is living in Yorkshire in the time of the Yorkshire Ripper, and if you didn't know, this serial killer, and he was named after Jack the Ripper in the way that he killed women mostly, and a lot of women in this time were very scared to leave their house. It was a very unsafe time and it made a lot of women feel very vulnerable, and some women hit back at that with going out anyway. It was just a very unsure time, and it was so interesting to see the perspective of a young girl during that time. And our main character takes on the responsibility of trying to find the murderer, so a little bit like A Good Girl's Guide to Murder, because she thinks that if she finds the murderer then her family won't want to move from Yorkshire and she won't lose her best friend. A little bit like in A Good Girl's Guide to Murder, she goes on a bit of an investigation and obviously everyone's like, why is a little kid investigating this like big shot murder, but she interviews all these different people from the village and you see a lot about like the village dynamics during this time. I mean, not a lot has changed in terms of like the stereotypes and just the dynamics between different people in the village, so it was very interesting to see that and how honestly very little has changed. I really enjoyed it actually. I gave it a 4.5 stars. I didn't quite give it a 5-star because I think you're supposed to do this is going to make me sound really dumb, but I forgot the name, the actual Yorkshire Ripper, and so I was like thinking that it was going to be one of these people in the book, and I think you're supposed to know the name, so then you're supposed to go into it knowing that it's none of the people that she investigates. My mum was like, yeah, like they mention his name like in passing at some point and then you're like, oh, that's the guy. And she doesn't actually investigate the actual murderer, which is not a spoiler. Like, I think that's something you're supposed to know, but I'd honestly forgotten the name of him, so I thought that it might be one of the people that she was investigating, so I think I got the wrong end of the stick there, and I think it was a little bit slow at the start for me. But other than that, I really enjoyed it, even though I feel like I went in with the complete wrong expectations. Then I did my reread of Vow of Thieves. You can see in the background my little Vow of Thieves that my friend rebound for me and she annotated it, so I did a reread of it, just a little something that we do on each other's birthday where we annotate a copy of a book for each other. Obviously Chef's Kiss, one of my 6-star books. I love this book so much. This is the second book in the Dance of Thieves series and we follow Cassie and Jace. So Cassie is a member of the Queen's Guard and she is tasked with going undercover to this outlaw family to investigate them, but under the disguise of I can't remember what she's like under the disguise of, but she's basically going in as a bit of a rat and trying to infiltrate into their family to get information. Obviously our two main characters have a little bit of an entanglement, and then this is the second book that follows on from there, but I can't tell you too much about what it's about because I don't want to spoil anything. But I absolutely love this duology. It's one of my favourite duologies and one of my favourite fantasy series of all time. So I did have this book physically. I don't know if anyone remembers, it was on my TBR cart for over a year, and that is Intermezzo by Sally Rooney, but as soon as I finished it, I donated it to charity. I don't think I've ever done that with a book before. It literally was on my TBR cart for like over a year and it never even made it to my bookshelf. You know, hopefully it finds a new home with an owner who loves it, but I just didn't enjoy this book. So we follow two brothers. They're both very different. They both have a bit of an estranged relationship because of how different they are. Peter is more of the like put together brother, seen as more normal by everyone else. He's a lawyer and he, you know, had this really long time girlfriend. He had his whole life together, but then something happened with his girlfriend. It affected their relationship so much that they parted ways, but they didn't part ways enough for them to not see each other anymore. So they're kind of in a weird friends relationship, but they both obviously still love each other. And then he also has this other girl who he's seeing who is much younger. He's kind of embarrassed and feels like a bit of a cliche, like this guy who had his whole life together, had a long-term girlfriend, and they split up and he went for a much younger girl. And it kind of follows him just choosing between these two girls, and I just did not care, and I just thought, grow up. Maybe I didn't see the deeper meaning, but I honestly was just like, oh my god, someone needs to punch this guy in the face and someone needs to smack these girls into reality, because what the fuck is going on? So Ivan was pretty successful because he was a chess champion, is seen as the like less normal one because he's a little bit, you know, awkward. He's not as forthcoming. He doesn't have a girlfriend. He has also kind of fallen off on the chess a little bit, and so he's kind of struggling in life, but he meets this woman and they fall in love, but she's a lot older than him, and so there's a lot of complications there. And then it also follows like the brothers dynamic in their relationship. I just didn't care. Like there were some parts where I got a little bit more invested, like maybe when there's a bit of drama, but I didn't care about our two main characters at all. I was like, you guys could do anything. They could like fall flat on their face and die and I wouldn't bat an eyelid. So I gave it 2 stars, which is generous, but I do like Sally Rooney's writing some of the time. The first chapter of this book though, honestly, I thought my brain was shutting down. Like I could not read Peter's chapters. Like they were written in such an annoying way, and I do get that it's probably like the artistic style that she chose to write it in, but I was like, oh my god, I can't read like this. So I feel like now going on this like massive rant about it, maybe 2 stars was a little bit generous, but I can appreciate she can do some good writing, and I was interested for some parts, but just most of the time I did not care. Anyway, I feel like I just completely vented all my frustrations out just then. We'll move on to something slightly more positive. So the next book I read was one of the books from his Dark Materials. So this is a bind up of all 3, but I read Northern Lights, although I think it's also called Golden Compass. I don't actually know if there's 2 names or what, it's confusing me. I'd say it's similar sort of genre to like Narnia, where it's like a kid's fantasy book, but it's quite developed. Like I don't know, when you're reading it, it feels a little bit like you're reading a kid's book, but then at the same time you're like, how is a kid reading this and understanding what's going on? But I guess like when you're an adult you understand more of the underlying themes, and when you're a kid you're just reading like a fun book. Maybe in the like 9 to 12 category. We follow Lyra, who's the main character, and she lives in Oxford with all these professors, I think, and she stumbles on something that she isn't supposed to discover when her uncle visits, and she's eavesdropping on his conversation and she kind of stumbles into something she's not supposed to discover, and then weird things start happening and kids start disappearing in the village, and she wants to go and investigate in the north. You know, everyone says that she's too young, but eventually she manages to get to be able to investigate these weird things that are happening, and this dust, which is a key part of this book. It's quite hard to explain. I don't want to spoil anything, but she basically joins this group of men to go and investigate this weird thing that's happening in this world. And it can get quite complicated, honestly. Sometimes I was confused during this book. I did really enjoy it, and I still gave it a 4 stars. Sometimes you can kind of feel like you're reading a kid's book, but most of the time it is honestly quite gripping. The only reason I didn't rate it like a 5-star is because I was kind of confused at some points at what it was meant to be. But I guess if you're a kid, you're probably just reading it and not thinking that deeply into it. But I was just like reading it and thinking about all the themes that it could actually be talking about, you know, like in kids' books when there's an underlying theme that the kids probably won't get, but it's kind of trying to teach you a lesson. I feel like maybe I focused a little bit on that and I was making it too complicated. Then I read One Golden Summer by Carly Fortune. So this one is the follow-on book for Every Summer After by Carly Fortune. TV series of Every Summer After is coming out on Amazon next month. I wanted to read the second one just in case there was any reference to it in the TV show. I don't think there will be. I think it's solely focusing on the first book, but just in case. So this book follows on from Charlie, who's one of the main characters in Every Summer After. He's the brother of the love interest. He, in that book, gets a bit of a bad rep, and so he gets given his own book and he kind of redeems himself a little bit. It's honestly quite hard to see how he's going to redeem himself, but he does, and it was a really fun book. I do think that it went on a little bit long with our female main character being like, oh no, I can't be with him, but I guess that's like every romance book ever. I enjoyed both our main characters. Honestly, it's quite rare in a romance. I feel like I always prefer one of our main characters, but I actually really enjoyed both of them. I think it went really well into Charlie's character and into what happened in Every Summer After and into how that affected his life and how he's quite a like happy, funny guy, but you know what's underneath all that. Also really went into our female main character, and I feel like a lot of the times in romance books you don't get to know them very well, especially the female main character. I feel like sometimes, well, it depends. Sometimes you really don't get to know the female main character because we just focus on how much she loves this man. Or sometimes you don't get to know the male main character because we're not in his POV. And I feel like I did both of those things really well and we got to know both of them really well. Yeah, I gave it a 3.5. I do think that it was just another romance, like I'm probably not going to remember it that much, but I did really enjoy it. And I read the second book in his Dark Materials, which is The Subtle Knife. I can't really say too much, but it follows on from the first book, obviously. Have a new character enter who is a little boy, and he is like the second main character of the series from now on. They kind of go on all these missions together, and a lot of this book is just like little side quests, little missions. Kind of like, this is going to sound really weird, but gave me Six of Crows energy in that way, but like written for kids. Because you know how in Six of Crows they're always going on little heists and they always have plans that maybe you as the reader don't know about. I really enjoyed that. I also really love the part of these books where they have their demons, but they're spelt like differently. There are humans in this book. Lyra is actually from a different world and she has a demon, and a demon is like the personification, I guess, but it's an animal of your subconscious, I guess. And when you're a child it can like change forms, and then when you become an adult it stays in a specific form. And I feel like that's him kind of referencing like a human's subconscious and a human's ideas, because we also get humans in this book and they obviously don't have demons and everything's just inside their minds. I really enjoyed that part. And then I read the final book, which is The Amber Spyglass in this series. Honestly, I wasn't expecting a kids book to end this way. It got me a little bit. I almost cried a little bit at the end, and I gave this one a 3.5 instead of a 4. I don't want to say why, but for the first part of the book our characters spent a lot of time apart, and I'd kind of come to like the back and forth between our characters, and I feel like this last book was a little bit in many different directions and it got a little bit like I don't really know where we're going. Overall, I think I'd give this book series a 4-star. I did actually really enjoy it, much more than I thought I was going to, and it's nice to have a little bit of a change of genre as well. Then I read Just Friends by Hayley Pham. This book has gotten a lot of stick from people online, a lot of hate, and a lot of people saying that it's not very good. I personally really enjoyed it. I gave it a 4-star. So we basically follow Blair and Declan, and they were childhood lovers childhood friends to lovers, and then something happens and they split apart. The normal childhood lovers romance plot. I think it's done really, really well in this book. I think we again get to know the two main characters really well. I felt like I actually knew the female and the male main character just as well as each other, and I really enjoyed their romance. I think it was done really well, but I wouldn't say that this is just a romance, kind of like in Emily Henry's books, where there is a strong subplot of something quite emotional. I feel like a lot of people like that with Emily Henry, and then when any other author does it, they have something to say about it, but I feel like you probably really wouldn't be able to tell by the cover. It does get quite deep and emotional, and I really liked that. It's also based in this cute little town, and we get flashbacks from when they were younger to now, and we kind of have that mystery of what happened between them. And we also have the subplot with our female main character. She's been through a lot in her life. Right from the off, we know that her auntie is ill, and so we follow a lot of that. I also absolutely love the little chapter pictures. So when it's a flashback, it has this little drawing in it, and then when it's a normal chapter, we have this little drawing. And I just think that's so cute to differentiate between the flashback chapters and the now chapters. Then another reread, I finished my reread of Queen of Shadows. I did both audio and physical reading of this one. Now on the tandem read, which is very daunting. I'm like 25% through the tandem read, and I finished this one on the 3rd of April, so over a month ago, and I'm only a quarter of the way through the tandem read. This is the 4th or 5th book in the Throne of Glass series, depending on what order you want to read it in. I love this series so much. My favourite part of it though is not the romance between our main characters. I love our female main character, and I do love our male main character, but I just don't see as much of the hype as everyone else, which I feel like is such a shock whenever I say that, but I just don't. There is a character introduced in this one who is my favourite character, well, two characters, and they are my favourite relationship, they are my favourite characters. Sorry about that, my camera just ran out. I gave it a 4 star. I love some books in the Throne of Glass series. I do love this book. I just feel like because I don't absolutely love the main love story in this, and I prefer just following our female main character, I feel like a lot of the following our female main character without the love story kind of fades away a little bit, and so I think I prefer the starting books in this series to the ending books. Saying that, obviously my favourite characters come in and kind of make up for it at the end, but I do think Throne of Glass is my second favourite. Crescent City will always be my favourite Sarah J Maas series, but I do think Throne of Glass is my second favourite. It is almost ACOTAR. I think Throne of Glass and ACOTAR are kind of tied because I love the plot so much more of Throne of Glass, and I love our main character so much, but I just don't feel that connection to the love story. Okay, then I read My Husband's Wife by Alice Feeney, which is a thriller. I love Alice Feeney so much, but her recent books I haven't been the biggest fan of. I just either think that they are really outlandish or a little bit predictable or just not that plot twisty. This one I loved. I had really good reviews of this one, so I even bought it in the hardback, and I will always read Alice Feeney's new releases, but to buy the hardback I mean business. The other reason why I bought the hardback is A, the cover is so beautiful. I also only realised the other day that the key obviously has a face in it, but then the outline here is also a face. So we've got the woman in the key and then a man in the cutout of the key, which I just thought was crazy. And I love the pink and the blue and the gold. Stunning. But also, B, the main character has my name. I'm not gonna say Alice Feeney named her after me, but Alice Feeney like obviously named her after me, and I really enjoyed it. So we basically follow Eden. Just recently moved into this really big fancy house in Cornwall. She's moved in with her husband. She goes running every evening. She leaves like all her possessions at home. She just goes on a run, except her keys. And then she comes back, she puts a key in the lock. It doesn't fit anymore. She knocks on the door and someone answers, called Eden, looks exactly like Eden, dressed the exact same as Eden, claims that she is Eden, but obviously we're following Eden, so we're a bit like, what the hell is going on? And then her husband comes downstairs and completely acts like he doesn't know who our main character is, and she just gets battered away, called the police on, and she's so confused because she was literally here before her run, just living her normal life. And we follow multiple different POVs, the detective, the husband, Eden. Because you're in all these POVs, you're like, how is this all interlinking, because all these random POVs keep popping up and they must come into the story somewhere. And this one was really twisty and turny. I gave it a 4-star, I think, because I don't think the twist at the end was that jaw-dropping, because I feel like if you've read a lot of Alice Feeney's books, it's a little bit similar, just in terms of how she reveals information and how she keeps information and how she like drop feeds you information. You can kind of, once you've read enough of a thriller author's books, I feel like you can kind of tell the way that they give hints. The hint was dropped quite early and I really noticed it because I've read so many of her books. So that's all I'm going to say. I'm trying to keep it vague, but that's the only reason I didn't give it more, just because I feel like I kind of knew what was coming, more or less. There were some parts that I didn't, but the big part of it I feel like I kind of knew. Then I read The X-Files by Jessica Joyce. This one I read because it was my brother's wedding and I was going to be a bridesmaid, so I thought what a more perfect atmospheric book to read than The X-Files. This one is actually a little bit different than I thought. I thought we'd be like following like the wedding festivities all the way out, but we're actually following the planning and the wedding comes like right at the end. So it wasn't as atmospheric as I wanted it to be, but it was still really good and it still had a lot of like the wedding talk, but it was actually kind of making me really anxious because we follow these two main characters who are the groomsmen. They're both on the groom's side. Obviously she's a lady, but they're both on the groom's side and they're both like the best man of the wedding. Basically the wedding goes to absolute poop. They have to reorganize the whole wedding really last minute, like a week before, and so they go out to where the wedding is going to be and try to organize everything on their own, but they are exes. They have a lot of things unsaid between them. They have a lot of emotions that aren't untangled between them, and it gets really complicated. And then like things just keep going wrong. Like everything that could ever go wrong at a wedding was going wrong, and it was actually making me kind of anxious. So maybe don't read this around the time that you're going to a wedding. I gave it a 4.5 stars. I thought that in some parts of it I was like, nah, this isn't going to be a 5-star, and it wasn't a 5-star because I had those feelings, so I didn't get the 5-star feeling from it. Got together quite early, and the way that they got together, like there was no, I guess because they've already been together, you're not going to get the like, oh, are they going to kiss, are they going to not, and then they finally kiss and then it doesn't go any further, and then like that sort of slow build up because they've already had that build up before. But I would have kind of liked to see that build up, and I feel like we kind of got thrown right in the deep end when they got back together, and I kind of wish there was a more gradual build up. But I really enjoyed it, and I really enjoyed the talks that went on in this book. I think that it was very well written in that way, and I just thought that it was so fun based around a wedding as well. I love any second chance romance and I love any book based around a wedding. That was the last book that I finished, but I'm currently in the middle of the tandem read, which I said earlier. 2 books before the last book in the Throne of Glass series. The books take place at the same time but follow different POVs, and so you kind of can read them at the same time. And the other book that I'm in the middle of is another big book. These are all like the books I'm in the middle of are all like 700-page books. I'm in the middle of 3 of them, so who knows when I'm going to finish them, but that is The Winners by Frederick Backman. Is the 3rd book in the Beartown series. I feel like everything is based on ice hockey nowadays. I literally like had a whole heated rivalry books and series like obsession at the start of the year, and then Off Campus just came out and I just watched that. I'm also reading The Winners by Frederick Backman. I feel like ice hockey has taken over the year. Like 2026 is just the year of ice hockey. Not that this book came out this year, but the Beartown books follow ice hockey because it follows Beartown, and it's called, like, they pronounce it in the audiobook like Hied or something. I probably really butchered that. And that's the other town, who's the next town over, and they're rivals in hockey. And in Beartown, one of the star hockey players on the Beartown team does something really terrible. As a result, he isn't allowed to play and the Beartown team loses, and then the person that he did this really terrible thing to is the one that gets more punished than him, because the town cares so much about hockey that they don't care about what he did. They're just mad at the person who made it so that he couldn't play anymore. That is kind of like the start and catalyst of our story, of what really divides the town, because before it was just the town against the other town, and now the town is also divided as well. And so there's so much division in this book, and it basically just follows the dynamics of everyone who lives in Beartown, and then it starts to include the people that live in Hied, and how just a rivalry about ice hockey can ruin so much of people's lives, basically. And it sounds really boring, but it basically is just a character study. Like, it just follows all these different characters throughout years and years and years. You just kind of get really attached to the characters. Unfortunately, Frederick is not scared of putting you through an emotional roller coaster either, so there's that too. I've only got like 250 pages left, so I'm thinking I will probably finish it in the next 5 days, fingers crossed. So those are all the books that I read in recent months. Let me know if you've read any of them, what you think. Let me know your favourite books from the past month, because I'm always looking for new books to add to my TBR. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up. You can subscribe down below and turn on the bell, and you'll be notified every Saturday when I upload a new video, always book related. And if you want to, you can follow my social medias at _libraryofeden, both TikTok and Instagram. They're always bookish related. See you in my next video very soon. Bye.